Don't you think it's weird that even though we went to the moon in the 60s, the moon isn't an extension of Earth by now? We should have a space station in the moon. There should be like a lunar hotel or something. But we're now planning to go to Mars. We have more photos of the surface of Mars, and we have clear photos of the rings of Saturn. But we don't have a selfie from the moon in the year 2025? What is going on? So let's talk about this Blue Origin all-female launch that happened recently that is getting huge backlash. Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Blue Origin, this SpaceX adjacent company that does these launches into space for civilians. Right now, they're just sending civilians high into the atmosphere. They have been doing several of these launches in the past, but this is the first time that it's an all-women crew that went up. And so they made a big deal about this. Jeff's fiance was on the rocket, so it made it even more special for him. So this was a really big deal. And of course, Gayle King, who is a correspondent on the CBS morning show, she was one of the women who went up. And so CBS was showing the whole thing live. It was a big, big thing. And it's getting a lot of backlash. I'm going to start this video by saying I am not one of those conspiracy theory lunatics that believe that everything is fake, that the deep state is behind everything. I'm not one of those folks, let me tell you from now. But it's hard when you look at the images that came out of this whole fiasco, the most unnecessary space trip. And the cringiest. Yes, it was extremely cringy. When you look at some of the details, it is hard to believe that this whole thing was fully based in reality. There were so many telltale signs that this was all for show. And for what? How much money did Jeff Bezos spend on this little stunt? It is staggering. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video. I want to talk about some of the things that we saw that were clearly fake. Let's start with the rocket launch itself. Let's look at it. It looks like CGI'd, computer-generated imagery. Look how clear this looks. And anybody who put this CGI together should have known, you know what, this is going to look too perfect. And people are going to think that this is fake. Let me start by saying I don't believe the launch and the actual space trip was faked. I do believe they went up there. This is technology that is not new. You can actually do what they did on a plane. And there are airplanes that are equipped to take you that high up in the atmosphere that you get to the place where gravity no longer has that strong of a pull on you, so you can actually float. You can have the zero gravity. It's not fully zero gravity, but there's so little of it that they are able to float. And so, yes, they were up there. I don't believe that it was faked because the technology has existed for a really long time. This is possible. But in their attempt or desire to make this look as polished as possible and as clean and as cinematic as possible, they clearly dropped the ball with this whole CGI rocket. And why is this rocket so phallic? Jeff has a fixation. This is what the Amazon headquarters in Seattle look like. It's called the Spheres. And then you have this the man has a fixation. But we're gonna let him we're gonna let him play in our faces. But again, it was just too clean, perfected for Hollywood production value. And where were these cameras positioned? I guess they were drones. We're supposed to believe that these were drones that were capturing the rocket as it is going up. But but it's just the production is just too clean. When we see a rocket launching, we want to see a rocket launch. You don't need to give us the Hollywood production. We know we're not watching a movie. This is not a video game. This is real life, and we want to see real life play out. You don't have to do all that. One of my thoughts about this is, and this is kind of creepy to say, but I remember the Challenger explosion. At the time, I wasn't living in this country. I'm from Panama. And so I saw it after the fact. I remember I was at home watching TV and there was breaking news that the Challenger, something that I had been following closely about the launch that was about to happen. Because if you don't know this about me, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. So all things space related and NASA, I was so interested in. And I'd heard about this mission that was the first mission that was going to be taking civilians to space. And there was a teacher there that was going to be doing experiments, and she was going to be conducting some science classes through satellite, and that it was going to be beamed to classrooms. And it was this really interesting thing that was going to happen. And because I lived in Panama, I don't think there was a live feed of the launch, but when things went wrong and it exploded, it was breaking news all over the world, and the breaking news happened and I was devastated. And I think that was the beginning of the end of my dream of being an astronaut, because I was so terrified, kind of traumatized by this actually. And there's a part of me that believes that maybe Jeff Bezos was saying, this is going to be shown live. These are a group of women who are going up into space. They are all, I believe all of them are moms. I don't know about some of the other women, but the women who are famous, they all have children. And the idea of watching something go wrong and the rocket exploding on live TV and knowing that all these moms just died on live television, I think maybe they created a CGI clean image of the rocket going up. So if something went wrong, it wouldn't happen on live. Maybe the screen would go black and then they would say, we're sorry to inform you that something went wrong, but that we wouldn't have those images online. That's what I'm thinking happened. I'm convinced that that's what it was, to kind of give a sanitized version and a more cinematic version of the launch. But when you do things like this that are so obviously not real, people who are already prone to believe that all these things are fake, that we've never been to space, that there is no space, that the earth is flat, that blah, blah, blah. Of course, they're going to look at this and say, there's no way this actually happened. And here's another thing that causes people to doubt the space program. Don't you think it's weird that even though we went to the moon in the 60s, the moon isn't like an extension of Earth by now, that we don't really go there that often? That we don't have a lot of photos of astronauts standing on the surface of the moon, but we're now planning to go to Mars. We have more photos of the surface of Mars. We have clear photos of the rings of Saturn, but we don't have a selfie from the moon in the year 2025. If we went there for the first time in the 60s, why isn't it routine? Now, we should have a space station in the moon. There should be like a lunar hotel or something. What is going on? I want to make a video about the fact that we have somehow stalled innovation. I think we peaked somewhere in the mid-90s. Remember the Concorde? We had a supersonic plane that could fly from New York City to Paris in 2 hours. And then one of those planes crashed and we scrapped the whole thing. We just abandoned the Concorde, that technology, that we could travel faster from one point to the other. We just abandoned that because of one accident, one crash. And we've been devolving ever since. I want to make a video about that, but I need to do some research. I also found the way in which it landed on Earth with a thud. That was very violent. I mean, if you're inside of that thingy that made it back to Earth and you land so hard, you crash land on Earth. Even if you're strapped into your seat, Isn't that going to cause a bit of whiplash? These ladies were not wearing any helmets or any kind of security gear. They were wearing these Barbarella space jumpsuits kind of a thingies. And I just don't understand how that thud with which they landed wouldn't cause a concussion. This was, it was, I looked at that and I'm thinking, are they okay in there? I don't know. This is probably, how they do it all the time. And again, this is one of many launches that Blue Origins have been doing. And apparently this is how they've always been doing it. But this one, there was so much scrutiny. And we're going to touch on that. Then, of course, we have the viral moment when they had landed and then the door suddenly opens from the inside and this person run up and say, no, don't open it yet. Jeff is going to open it. He has to open it for you. And then Jeff comes with this crowbar that is supposed to be the thing that turns the crank and finally frees the ladies. This big, strong man, Jeff Bezos, he came and he freed the ladies. And of course, this was all orchestrated. Couple things with that. Number one, the thing is not supposed to be so easily opened from the inside. If you're going to be going up into space, the G forces would be so powerful that it would be better if doors have to be pushed out to be opened instead of just being able to swing it open from the inside. Also, that door looked really flimsy. It almost looked like it was made out of plastic. And then the whole fakeness of it can only be opened when you turn this thing with a crowbar. This has set space travel or people's belief in the veracity of space travel all the way back. Simply because Jeff Bezos was so committed to the theatrics and the Hollywood quality of it all. And this was a mistake. Everything looks like it was done wrong. It is the wrong thing. It just adds fuel to the fire of people believing that all of it is fake and it cannot be believed. But I want to touch on a couple of things. Why so much hate? Why so much hate? I'll tell you why. We've talked about this. I have been covering the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case. I've made it very clear that I'm very much against what Blake Lively, I believe, is doing. I believe she's putting out a phony case to kind of help clean up her reputation, which she ruined herself. But I also recognize in my reporting that the bulk of the backlash that Blake has been receiving, it's because she's a woman who dared to challenge a man in an area that is usually dominated by men, directing movies, being in charge of a set. The fact that Blake dared to step out of her role as an actress and as a ceremonial producer into wanting to wrestle this project away from the director who's a man, it made it even more egregious. And in this case, people have been really laying it on the women. This was a waste of money. Why all this money was spent to send these women up into space, and it was all fake, and this was ridiculous, and the women are so entitled and they think they're better than everybody. Yes, there were mistakes that were made. Gayle coming up and saying, well, have you been to space? All the people criticizing us, have you been? No, Gayle, obviously we haven't been to space. We're not millionaires and we're not billionaire adjacent to be able to afford to go up into space. But I know that what she meant to say is, unless you've been there the way we have been there, you wouldn't understand what it feels like. So that's why we have come back and we feel like we have been changed, because we have seen Earth from a different perspective. We've experienced something that very few people have experienced. So forgive us if we seem a little bit too exuberant, because we experience something that most people will not experience, and we are different people for it. But of course, it came across really entitled and elitist, the way she said it. So I understand the outrage, but the backlash has really gone way above. And the Katy Perry hatred, I have never seen anything like this. The woman went to space. She was excited. She was exuberant. She's one of those kind of corny people who does the most. And she's being roasted. And what is Wendy's problem? I don't know, but to me, that was stepping a little bit over the line. Going after this woman who was invited on an adventure that anybody would have been honored to accept. And she went up there and people were criticizing her because she was holding up the flower. That was a shout out to her daughter, her little daughter Daisy. I'm sure when she was saying goodbye to her and her little daughter was nervous because her mom was going up into space and she doesn't know if her mommy's gonna come back. She's a child. That Katy said, don't worry, baby, I'm gonna take a little daisy flower with me. And when I have that, it's like I have a little piece of you. It's like you're with me up there. And when you're watching me on TV, I'm gonna be showing you the flower and I'm gonna give you a little smile. That's me saying hi to you. You know, it was a sweet little moment. It was a little corny, yes, but it was a sweet little moment for her daughter. And people are just ripping this woman to shreds. There have been different groups that have gone up into space, like I mentioned before. There have been actors and activists and just plain billionaires who've had the money to pay to go up there. And they didn't get all this backlash. They weren't scrutinized this closely. But this is the problem when the powers that be go overboard in their effort to placate marginalized groups. When they go overboard in trying to, let's include people, but let's make it splashy. Let's do the most. It creates resentment. And I am not one who believes that we should not do anything that's going to piss off the mainstream because we don't want them to be angry at us. You know what? If you want to get pissed off because there's more diversity than there was before, stay mad. Stay pissed. We don't care. But it's when the diversity is done in such an over-the-top, overboard way that it is almost a provocation. And I've made a video. I made a video about this way back. It was one of the first videos. I think it was the first year when I was doing YouTube, where I talked about how Bravo wanting to include more women of color in their shows, in their Real Housewives shows, that the way in which the storylines are so race focused have caused more harm than good. It has made it worse for people of color, to the point where, and I talk specifically about the Ebony Williams season of Real Housewives of New York that basically ruined that show forever. It basically destroyed one of my favorite shows, New York, because it was so race heavy. And then there was Ebony just standing up on her soapbox and just being the most insufferable person that it made the season unwatchable. And I haven't watched the show since. And it's just too much. It was kind of getting there with Garcelle in Beverly Hills. And I, for one, I was relieved when she announced that she was leaving, because I felt like it was getting to the point where it's like that becomes the storyline. Look, there's black people on the show now. So now things are about to get uncomfortable. Let's all watch. And shows that were relaxing experiences to watch now become tense and uncomfortable, and everything is about race. I just hope that Bose doesn't go down that rabbit hole. I just pray that she doesn't just... And I feel that for a long time, I used to feel that when the mainstream is trying to include people, they don't know how to do it. They have the best of intentions in doing it. But I'm starting to wonder, is it done on purpose so that it can create the backlash? I don't know. I should make a video about this a little in more detail when I really flesh out my thoughts. But this is giving that. They had this all-female crew space trip, And it was so over the top. It was so over announced. It was too much. And now it created this backlash that I don't know if anybody's going to want to do an all-female anything anytime soon with all this backlash, including from a food chain that has a little girl as its logo, that inserted itself in going after a woman who was happy for a wonderful once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. When we do things like this, when we do inclusivity, which is extremely important, and by the way, I need people to understand that inclusivity and equity, it's not about giving somebody special treatment. It's about stopping the special treatment that the one group of people have been getting all along, and finally putting people on an equal playing field. That's what it is. It's the end of privilege. It's the end of special treatment. That's what we should all want. We should all want equal opportunity. We should all want to be able to sit with our equals at a table and may the best one win. May the most qualified win. No more privileges for the person whose daddy plays golf with the CEO and that's why you get the opportunities. No, everybody gets a chance at the opportunity, and let the best, smartest, most hardworking one win. That's what equity is all about. Equity, equality. We want that, right? Right? Or don't we? So yeah, those were my thoughts on this. Let me know what you thought. Do you think the whole thing was fake? Or do you think that they were just trying to make it too polished and ended up making it look like it was fake? That's my theory. Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you join us. If you are interested in hearing me talk about pop culture and other things in the news, please share this video with others if you think it was interesting. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Please watch other videos while you're here. And don't forget to subscribe on your way out. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.